nature that things that look delicious, creamy, rich, and satisfying are fattening. It is another rule of nature that to every rule there is an exception. Sugar-free A&W root beer. As delicious, creamy, rich, and satisfying as it looks, definitely not fattening. Sugar-free A&W, the exception.
There was a time when nothing said American summer like a cold A&W root beer in a frosty mug. A&W wasn't just a soda. It was a movement, a staple of small towns, a piece of Americana, and one of the first fast food chains to ever exist. But while A&W root beer is still everywhere today, lining grocery store shelves and soda fountains, the restaurant chain that built it has nearly vanished. So how did this classic brand go from dominating drive-ins to disappearing from highways across America? Let's take a look at how the root beer outlived the restaurant. The story begins in Lodi, California, in the summer of 1919. Roy W. Allen, a young entrepreneur, bought a root beer recipe from a pharmacist and began selling mugs of it for just 5 cents. It was the end of World War I, and Americans were in a celebratory mood. Allen's root beer, cold, sweet, and caffeine-free, was an instant hit. Soon after, he teamed up with Frank Wright, and the two used their initials A and W to create what would become one of the first franchised restaurant chains in America. Allen sold his first franchise in 1921, making A&W one of the earliest examples of a scalable restaurant business, years before McDonald's or Dairy Queen would even exist. By the 1950s, A&W was everywhere. It became the face of the post-war drive-in culture. Each restaurant was independently owned, often run by local families who gave their A&W a personal touch. Many had car hops on roller skates, neon light menus, and of course, those iconic frosty mugs that were chilled before each pour. A&W wasn't just selling burgers and fries. It was selling experience. A place to take your date, hang out after a football game, or cool off on a hot summer night. By the late 1960s, there were more than 2,400 A&W restaurants across the U.S. and Canada, making it one of the largest fast food chains in the country. The menu expanded. The mascot, Rudy the Great Root Beer, was introduced in the 1970s, and A&W became a symbol of feel-good Americana. But behind the nostalgic glow, cracks began forming. As the 1970s and 80s rolled in, competition skyrocketed. McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's were expanding aggressively with standardized menus, faster service, and bigger advertising budgets. A&W's franchise model, where each restaurant operated independently, made it hard to keep a consistent brand identity. Some locations thrived, others lagged behind. Around this time, A&W made a pivotal move. The restaurant chain and the root beer soda brand split into separate entities. The soda side was eventually acquired by Keurig Dr. Pepper, which gave it global reach, sold in bottles, cans, and fountains around the world. Meanwhile, the restaurant side went through a carousel of corporate owners. From United Brands to A. Devo Holdings to Yum Brands, the parent company of KFC and Taco Bell in the 2000s. But without strong marketing or a clear direction, the restaurant began to fade into the background. By the mid-2000s, A&W was quietly shrinking. Yum brands often co-branded A&W restaurants with some of their restaurants, such as KFC and Long John Silver's, meaning many lost their unique drive-in charm. When Yum sold A&W in 2011 to a group of franchisees, the brand had dropped to just a few hundred locations nationwide. Many old restaurants were closed or rebranded entirely. Still, while it was fading fast in the US, something interesting was happening abroad. In Canada, A&W Canada broke away and became massively successful, focusing on fresh ingredients and modern branding. Today, A&W is Canada's second largest burger chain, just behind McDonald's. And in countries like Indonesia, A&W remains a beloved fast food brand, still serving root beer floats and classic American meals. While the restaurants dwindle, A&W root beer only grew stronger. Keurig Dr. Pepper distributed it worldwide, keeping the name alive in supermarkets, vending machines, and soda fountains. The root beer even outlasted many of its old competitors from the drive-in era, like Dog and Suds and Frost Top. It's the same creamy, vanilla-rich flavor that's been around since 1919, and it still carries that nostalgic charm of simpler times. So even if you can't find an A&W restaurant near you, the brand lives on every time you crack open that cold brown can. Today, fewer than 500 A&W restaurants remain in the United States, most of them in small towns that have kept the tradition alive. The company has shifted its focus towards quality and nostalgia, returning to made fresh burgers, hand-breaded chicken tenders, and of course, root beer made fresh in-house. In many ways, A&W is a survivor. It may no longer dominate the fast food landscape, but it still represents a piece of American history, a time when a root beer float could make your whole day. Over a century later, Roy Allen's idea still fizzes on.